The Department of Homeland Security has reprogrammed $271 million in department funding for immigration enforcement, including $155 million from FEMA disaster relief. This is not unusual, and it is not alarming, and nobody needs to have a conniption fit about it, even though several will. This just broke here recently. So people are going to hop on to social media and once again lie about FEMA funding and all of that other stuff. $116 million in funding will support additional immigrations and customs enforcement beds for detained migrants and transportation of migrants from Border Patrol facilities to ICE detention centers. So, much to the chagrin of Wayfair employees, ICE is going to buy some beds for the brown people to sleep on. Remember, the Wayfair employees were really upset that Wayfair was selling beds to ICE when ICE was like, we have too many people. We need beds for them to sleep on, so they're not sleeping on the floor. That's awful. We don't want them sleeping on the floor. We want them in beds. So Wayfair said, okay, we'll give you a good deal on beds. And then Wayfair employees said, no, we don't want to help the people who are coming from south of the border. We want them to sleep on the concrete. We don't want them to be on the beds. And they walked out of their jobs. Remember that? Another $155 million will go towards Migrant Protection Protocol. That's the MPP hearings that we talked about earlier. Again, about 22% in the month of July. About 22% of the people with the Migrant Protection Protocol hearings were actually sent to Mexico in order to wait their hearing. They're not released in the United States. So those numbers keep going up. That's good. One, that means that the shift in where they get to stay, if they want to actually go ahead and have these immigration hearings, that has now shifted part of that burden to Mexico. Mexico is cooperating with this. And what we ended up finding out is that a lot of the migrants who can't get into the United States illegally and easily are choosing to take the program that is funded by the U.S. government, but is run by the United Nations. They're choosing to take those planes home free of charge and go back to their homeland. What else do we have here? They explained that policy, but we already covered that earlier in the show today. This realignment of resources allows D.H.S. to address ongoing border emergency crises by alleviating the surge along the nation's southwest border while minimizing the risk of overall D.H.S. mission performance. That is according to Homeland Security in a statement. The unnamed D.H.S. official told It's Not News at CNN, in this case, this is a must-pay bill that needed to be addressed. The Department of Homeland Security informed Congress of its intent to shift the funding on Sunday, citing its authority to reprogram money under the D.H.S. Appropriations Act of 2019. No funding will be reprogrammed from U.S. Secret Service or the Office of the Inspector General or the Office of Intelligence and Analysis, according to the CNN report. DHS previously moved $10 million in FEMA funds to ICE last year, prompting pushback from Democratic lawmakers who didn't know what in the world they were talking about or did know and just lied to everybody. We debunked a lot of the talking points on that. Like I said, this just broke here a few minutes ago. Be prepared for people to misstate what the FEMA funds being reallocated means, okay? Of course, this is happening right as the time there's a tropical storm out there and an unusually quiet hurricane season. So there's going to be an extra bunch of people who lose their minds over this. And then there's going to be a bunch of people who are going to tell you to send it to the Amazon. I'm going to get to the Amazon story. For those of you who've been in your cubicles all day, I'm going to get to the Amazon bit in a minute because everything you're hearing about the Amazon being on fire is a lie. Okay, so we'll get to that. Let's see. I don't need to give you the history lesson on all of this stuff. So that was Amber Athey on the Daily Caller. So don't be surprised if the collective pearl clutchers go out there and start having an absolute freak out over all of this, even though it's really not unusual. It's well within the power of the Department of Homeland Security, and it's not going to affect FEMA's ability to do their job. Don't worry about it, okay? But people will, again, go out there and try to make that case. I didn't get to this a few days ago. When did this happen? Maybe the 21st? Was it really that long ago? That sucks. Okay. I talked about it on the live stream. I didn't talk about it on the show. The president's not getting as much credit, if you ask me, for doing something pretty awesome. So he signed an executive order a little while ago, about a week ago, that forgives all student loan debt for any permanently disabled U.S. military veteran. Now, as many of you know, over the years, everybody that I get who's a member of Congress into this studio, I ask them a very simple question. Would you introduce a piece of legislation that makes all military pay tax-free? I have expanded that many times to include first responders. I have had a lot of lip service. Nobody that I'm aware of has actually done that I've talked to, although there was one member of Congress, God, was it a decade ago? In another state who did make that recommendation that active duty military pay was going to be tax-free. I have been advocating for that for some time, not in any serious or full-time capacity or with powerful lobbying dollars or anything of that nature. It's just that when I get members of Congress in, it's one of those things that I ask them. It will be something that I ask members of Congress that I speak to when I'm in Washington, D.C. in late September. So President Trump signed an executive order that forgives all student loan debt for any permanently disabled U.S. military veterans. The order which Trump signed following a speech to the American Veterans National Convention in Kentucky also clears those eligible veterans from having to pay any federal income taxes on those loans. He added that he is pressuring individual states to follow suit. Again, because there's state taxes associated with some of that stuff. The debt of these disabled veterans will be completely erased, he said. That's hundreds of millions of dollars of student loan debt for our disabled veterans that will be completely erased. The memo that Trump signed directs the government to develop an expedited process to veterans so they can have their federal student loan debt discharged with minimal burdens. Currently, just half of the roughly 50,000 disabled veterans who are qualified to have their federal student loan debt forgiven have received the benefit because of a burdensome application process. Under the new process, or I should say under the current process, disabled veterans can have their debt forgiven under a loan forgiveness program called Total and Permanent Disability Discharge, or TPD, as long as they have a VA service-connected disability rating of 100%. As of July, however, only about 20% of the eligible pool of veterans had taken advantage of the program due to the complicated nature of the application and other factors. Trump's announcement is supposed to make that easier. All right. So hopefully that ends up being the case. We'll, of course, keep following it. And you veterans out there who qualify for this will certainly let me know if it is working as it is stated. In the meantime, continue to pay your bills as you're supposed to and wait for the program to kind of kick in. Do what you can to go ahead and get on that program, have your student loan debt forgiven. Got more coming up. News Talk 95.3, Michiana's news channel.
Casey Hendrickson.
News Talk 95.3, Michiana's news channel.